This is the Voice of Freedom. You're listening to the Worldwide Freedom Radio Network. Once again, you're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. In a White House memo, President Clinton called me the most dangerous radio host in America. And in order to take the heat off of himself, the man who sits on half his brain, Rush Limbaugh, read that memo on the air. And he said, I quote, "See, folks, it's not me. It's this fellow William Cooper, broadcasting out of a storefront in Arizona." End quote. Why am I the most dangerous radio host in America, ladies and gentlemen? Because I tell the truth. Because I document what I say, and I give you the source material so that you can look it up and find it for yourself. And I'm just about the only one in America who does that. Besides Jackie Patru, she's new on the scene, and she learned how to do that, ladies and gentlemen, from me. There are a few other people who document some things, but for the most part, people pass on rumor, they pass on lies, they pass on disinformation, they pass on phony documents. They never even make the slightest effort to check anything out for themselves. Up until the intelligence service of the Second Continental Army of the Republic Militia began investigating the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, everyone bought the media disinformation campaign. Lies is really what they were, and what they continue to be unto this day. We have published the initial results of our findings from our investigation in a book entitled Oklahoma City Day One. It was written by our Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas station chief, was the station chief at the time of the bombing, was relieved in August to recuperate from the tremendous stress of this investigation and to concentrate on compiling and analyzing the information that we have collected and continue to collect for Volume 2 and Volume 3 of these series. Volume 1 is 640 pages of nothing but actual testimony, documentation, eyewitness reports, transcripts of interviews, etc. And tonight I'm going to read to you some extracts from Oklahoma City Day 1, because I think you need to know about this book. You need to be inspired to purchase it and read it so that you'll know what's really happening. And in doing so, you will provide the funds to continue the investigation and to publish Volume 2 when it is ready. You see, we're not a great big publishing company, we're just a family. And we don't have a lot of money. In fact, right now, we don't have any money. So, if you would help us out, we would very much appreciate it. And in doing so, you'll be helping yourself out and the nation. For the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the greatest deceptions ever worked against the American people in the history of this nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start off by reading the dedication that Michele Moore wrote in honor of her grandfather, James Elton Watkins, because I think it's by far the best dedication I have ever read in any book that I've ever read in my life. And I quote, dedication. This book is dedicated to the memory of my grandfather, James Elton Watkins, December 14, 1895 to October 29, 1990. A veteran of World War I and the greatest patriot I have ever known. He was never ashamed of loving and supporting his country or of standing with and for his God. Always aware of the true state of the nation, he taught me about political realities when I was but a child and strongly believed that a knowledge of history would open many doors to understanding current events. He was our family patriarch and loved us unconditionally all his life. I love him unconditionally to this day, because he would have instantly grasped the meaning and consequence of this tragedy. The bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building would have irreparably broken his heart. For that reason, I am thankful he did not live to see it. And when I first read that, ladies and gentlemen, that touched me deeply. And the acknowledgments also touched me deeply, but I'm not going to read them. Instead, I'm going to skip to the forward so that you'll get some perspective of where this book has come from and why it was written and why it is so important. I wrote this forward as the director of the Intelligence Service to provide the reader with a basis of understanding right from the beginning of exactly who we are, what we do, and why this book is so important. Oklahoma City, Day One, has been a joint effort of many people directly under the supervision of Major Michele Moore. It is the initial results of the investigation by the Intelligence Service of the 2nd Continental Army of the Republic Militia of the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma on April the 19th, 1995. The Intelligence Service does not wear uniforms, drill with firearms, or run around in the woods. It is recommended that our people own and be proficient with firearms of all types. They must be prepared to fulfill their mission under any and all situations, including, if necessary, living on the ground in the woods. No people can survive in this world unless they have men and women who are prepared to give their lives, if necessary, in support of certain principles and ideals. And those people cannot survive without timely and accurate information. Our mission is to gather by any and all legal and lawful means information from all sources and provide for the free flow of information to the whole of the people, the militia of the several states of the Union. Most of those who took great risks, contributed their own money, volunteered time and effort to seek out and gather the truth of the Murrah Federal Building bombing cannot be identified. To do so would put them at even greater risk. To do so would compromise their ability to function as intelligence officers in any future endeavor. They have pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor in support of freedom. Without them, this investigation would have produced nothing. Without them, the masters of deceit might have been successful. Their service has been in the highest tradition of all those who have gone before. Michele Moore is a remarkable woman. She entered my life through email asking if she could be of some help. No matter what I said or did, she would not go away. Eventually, I assigned her the task of transcribing tapes of the hour of the time into text files for the online computer database. At some point, she became a member of the Intelligence Service, executed her oath of allegiance, and was assigned to intelligence gathering. She excelled. In the last 2 years, she has risen from lieutenant to major and has been recommended for a position on the command staff. Michele has demonstrated that she is a natural leader. Intelligent, loyal, dedicated, and very talented. She is unassuming and sometimes shy. If you ask her to describe herself, she will tell you that she is just an opinionated female. I have heard her say that so many times, but I have seldom found that to be true, although she will not budge on an issue if she believes that she is right, a trait that I also possess. It must be recognized that no matter how dedicated and resourceful Major Moore has been, she could never have accomplished much without the physical and emotional support of her husband and daughter. Her husband, another Intelligence Service officer, has an uncanny ability to fulfill any mission assigned. Some crucial data was obtained by him. He also functions as security for his wife, who is one of our most valuable assets. Her daughter has taken on many extra chores and readily accepted some hardships to which she was not accustomed. In the midst of all this turmoil, the Moore family has grown stronger and more supportive of each other than ever before. They serve as a fine example for all of us to follow. Oklahoma City Day One is as complete as humanly possible. It is only lacking in a historical perspective, and that history must be provided for the reader to fully understand the full meaning and consequences of the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. Many centuries ago, the Roman senator Cicero implemented a plan to invoke the ultimate decree of the Senate, a declaration of martial law which would permit summary execution of outlaws and the suspension of provocatio, which was the ancient right of appeal to the people in capital cases. Cicero claimed Rome's enemy was within. He used slogans such as "the plot against liberty," "pernicious designs of nefarious citizens," "seditious plots against the present form of government," "passionate men, always disposed for violence, ready for revolution." Cicero fostered, and I quote, "an atmosphere of prejudice and hysteria in which any proposal for the reinforcement of constitutional rights would be denounced as a cover for conspiracy," end quote. Rome's constitutionists were assassinated or exiled. The followers of the, quote, "most dangerous," end quote, were massacred. Cicero warned against patriots and veterans who, quote, "would not excel as farmers," end quote, that might take up arms against the Senate. A law forbade anyone carrying arms within the gates of Rome. Now, when no real subversives could be found, Cicero or his confederates would hire thugs to attack and beat citizens. Those attacked were considered sacrifices for the greater good of the empire. If the political opposition was particularly strong, a government building or a temple might be sacked and burned. There was said to be a, quote, "new order," end quote. The Romans were great propagandists, fooling themselves and their slaves into believing Rome represented the defender of liberty, justice, and peace for the world. Citizens of Rome felt they were an elite class of humanity. Arthur Kahn wrote in his Julius Caesar, and I quote, "Cicero adopted the prophetic magniloquence of the newly popular Eastern mystical cults which preached an eternal war of the armies of light against the forces of darkness and promised initiates eternal happiness after death through the grace of divine redeemers." End quote. Cicero, it appears, was illumined. The German National Socialist Workers' Party, or Nazis, promoted mysticism and lectured about, quote, "the armies of light against the forces of darkness," end quote. The SS required the candidate be given an occult education at an isolated castle, culminating in the officer's initiation into the, quote, "new religion," end quote. When Herr Hitler could not muster enough votes to control Germany, he burned the Reichstag, Germany's Congress. He labeled his political enemies responsible and rounded up his opposition literally overnight. By this method, Hitler seized power over all Germany. Hitler spoke of a, quote, "new order of the world," end quote. To confidants, he whispered of spirit visitors. The Jews became the enemy within the gates. The Japanese ambassador, noting how well the enemy within worked upon the German people, is said to have commented, quote, "I wish we had some Jews in Japan," end quote. The 1938 gun laws disarmed the German people. The Nazis were also masters of propaganda. The same scenario is presenting again. The ancient mystery religion has risen like the phoenix and taken wing in the so-called fraternal orders and the New Age movement. President Clinton speaks of an eternal war of the, quote, "armies of light against the forces of darkness," end quote. Hillary was recently discovered performing seances in the White House where she communicated with spirit guides. There is a, quote, new world order, end quote. When the administration wanted an omnibus counterterrorism bill, the World Trade Center in New York City was bombed. The terrorists used fertilizer and a Ryder rental truck. It was later revealed during their trial that they were working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI taught them how to make the bomb. The FBI taught them how to drive the truck. When the culprits wanted to substitute inert ingredients so as not to injure or kill anyone, the FBI denied their request and insisted they use the real thing. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, in their usual thorough fashion, recorded everything on tape. It was introduced at the trial, and a transcript was printed verbatim in the New York Times. When the omnibus counterterrorism bill languished in Congress with no hope of passage, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City was bombed. Those accused supposedly used a Ryder rental truck and a fertilizer bomb. The president spoke of, quote, those who have sacrificed, end quote. A year of lies and propaganda followed, along with gun control legislation on a massive scale. It has been discovered that before the bombing, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms was performing experiments blowing up trucks in the New Mexico desert with fertilizer bombs. The anti-terrorism legislation passed into law, giving government almost the same powers Cicero sought and Hitler realized. Once again, a republic is moving to oligarchy, then to dictatorship. The American people, as the Romans, as the Germans, haven't a clue. Michele Moore didn't just write about this nightmare. She experienced it. She lived it, and that fact will quickly become obvious to the reader. She takes us upon a journey that we will never forget. She untangles the web and guides us through wave after wave of horror and deception, all the while never failing to deliver the truth. As director of the Intelligence Service, I know all that is included in the book and much, much more. But even so, I find myself unable to leave it. I read and reread incessantly. I am no literary expert. The very best that I can think of to say about Oklahoma City day one is that it is the truth. Omnia vincit veritas, which is Latin for truth conquers all things. Signed, William Cooper, Director, Intelligence Service, 2nd Continental Army of the Republic, Militia, Eager, Arizona, June 25th, 1996. I'm going to read you, ladies and gentlemen, the oath of the Intelligence Service so that you will understand what we have pledged our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to perform. It is called the Oath of Allegiance. No one who takes this oath is required to swear, but to affirm. And I quote verbatim, I do affirm with free will and full knowledge that I will carry out to the best of my ability all legal and lawful instructions of the officers of the Intelligence Service, and that I will gather by any and all legal and lawful means information from all sources. I will provide for the free flow of information to the whole of the people, the militia of the several states of the Union. If required, I will protect and defend the Constitution of my state, execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasion. I will protect and defend the Constitution for the United States of America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. For the support of this oath, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, I pledge my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. For those of you who have never believed that there is a militia in this country, you had better think again. There have always been dedicated, honest, resourceful, loyal men and women in this country who throughout its history have risen to the call whenever the need has arisen. And this time is no different from any other time of crisis. and men and women from all walks of life, of all races and religions, who understand that there is a common bond amongst all people who call themselves Americans, and that common bond is freedom. 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 It is not religion, ladies and gentlemen. Our founding fathers warned us against the government and the state becoming one. There is no such thing in the Constitution as a separation between government and religion. That is a myth. There is no common bond amongst Americans as far as political parties or anything else. Our common bond is and has always been freedom, nothing else. And anyone who doesn't recognize that common bond, or who doesn't understand the whole purpose of this nation, and that freedom is the guiding light, is not, was not, and cannot ever be an American. I'm going to skip over to chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen, and begin. It's titled, Turn Over the Falsehood. And I may not finish the chapter during the rest of this hour, but I should at least give you an indication of the quality of the writing and the investigation and the evidence and the recording of that evidence in this book. Our people have done a magnificent job. They have taken great risk, spent untold sums of money, not to mention the value of their time. And what they have uncovered, we have analyzed, we have scrutinized, we have placed it under a magnifying glass. Michele Moore, with her unbelievable talent at writing, has put it into a context that anyone can readily understand. It is easy to read. It is probably Pulitzer Prize material, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not saying that because I have anything to do with it. I'm saying it because it's the truth. It is the truth. However, being that most of these literary organizations are in the hands of Marxist socialists, I doubt if it would even be considered. However, we are going to send the copy to the review board, and we'll see what happens. There's nothing been written like this, ladies and gentlemen, in this country for many years. One independent investigator has said that this will be the classic historical record of what happened in Oklahoma City. It was done that well. Nothing even begins to come close. So, right after this break, I will start with chapter 3, Turn Over the Falsehood, and you'll be able to get a better grasp of exactly, ladies and gentlemen, what it is that I'm trying to tell you. And I think once you do that, you won't be able to rest until you read this book. is brought to you by Swiss America Trading. I just got the newsletter, and tomorrow night I think I'm going to read you some of the stories in that newsletter. It's really a good one this time. Craig Smith is a great writer, and of course he has been involved with precious metals and money and has studied the economy all of his life. He is the president, CEO, the head of Swiss America Trading. He is my dear friend. He has supported this broadcast for going on 5 years now. Come hell or high water, he's always been there. And he's taken an awful lot of heat because of it. One of the things, if you ever get to meet Craig and talk with him, one of the things that you're going to find out is that he is a devoutly religious man. He is also a staunch patriot. He cares probably as much or more about this country than anyone alive today. He's prepared to do anything that it takes to support patriots, patriot broadcasting, to support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and to provide for the needs of those who understand what's happening in this country and what's coming down the pike. And coming pretty soon, I might add. So, you know how we all are. Me, you, everybody. We tend to procrastinate as a human failing. So I want you to call tonight. Ask for Rob. If Rob's not there, ask for anybody. In fact, if you call tonight, nobody's going to be there. You can leave your name and phone number, and someone will call you back tomorrow. If you ask for Rob to call you back, he will. And let me see if I've got his. No, I don't. Yes, I did. His voicemail box is 2139. So if you call and want Rob to call you back, when they ask you for the voicemail number, ask them to send you your own personal copy of the newsletter. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to thank them for sponsoring the Hour of the Time and for the financial backing that makes the Worldwide Freedom Radio Network possible. And I'm not kidding. Without that, there would be no Worldwide Freedom Radio Network, because we don't have any money. And that is almost a tragic truth around here. So call 1-800-289-2646. Ask them how you can get your hands on some real money. Tell them that you're a steady listener to William Cooper in the Hour of the Time, and you'll get red carpet treatment, I guarantee it. And if you don't, call me and I will, oh boy, when I get through with whoever didn't give you red carpet treatment, they'll be knocking at your door begging you for forgiveness. 1-800-289-2646. But you don't have to worry about that. It's never happened. Or 1-800-BUY-COIN. Do it now, folks. You'll be so happy that you did. was almost 10:30 in the morning. The warning came that another bomb had been discovered in the ruins of the Muir building. This was the first of 3 times during the day that rescuers would be evacuated from the building because of the discovery of other explosive materials. Witnesses monitoring the police scanner radios reported hearing the urgent announcement, "All companies come out of the building right now. Everybody evacuate the federal building. Remove all your personnel from the building immediately. Possible explosives planted in the building. Repeat, evacuate the building immediately." All personnel were ordered from the building and the surrounding area, some leaving victims trapped in the rubble who desperately cried after them to stay. Oklahoma City Assistant Fire Chief John Hanson, in writing about the evacuation, stated, quote, "The decision to pull our people was made quickly. In truth, there was no choice to make. The first rule for those responding to an emergency is not to become victims themselves. When the call came to evacuate, some of our people were working to extricate victims from the debris that trapped them. We learned later that some of those rescuers opted to stay with the injured and ride out the threat. We didn't reprimand any of them for their decision. We felt it was one of those few times in life where there wasn't a right or wrong choice. Whatever each rescuer personally chose to do, given each specific situation, was the right thing to do." Rescue workers were forced to leave some people who were conscious but trapped. Leaving was extremely tough on everyone who was sent out of the building, but it was obviously far worse for the victims left inside. The rescuers who saw their faces caught glimpses of pure terror, and those expressions are something they will carry with them for the rest of their lives." End quote. Firefighter Monty Baxter echoed Chief Hanson's words as he tried to explain how difficult it was for the rescuers to leave the victims. Quote, "I don't think anybody knows how tough that is, especially for a firefighter, to know that you're sitting here with somebody who's trapped and hurting and very frightened, and then you're ordered to leave." Some of the trained individuals who had patients sitting right next to them refused to leave the area until those patients were removed. Said medical technician Scott Moore, "It's real hard to sit there with someone who is bleeding and dying, who is looking at you and asking you not to leave, but then just go ahead and leave them. It's real hard to do that." An unidentified firefighter, obviously deeply affected by what had occurred, stated, quote, "When we got back, after the first evacuation, some of the people who were alive when we left them had died by the time we returned." End quote. Deputy County Assessor Tim Gilbert had to abruptly end his search near the nursery when reports of a second bomb led to the evacuation of the area. Quote, "God, I hope they get those little kids out," he cried. "I had to leave little kids on the second floor. I'd rather be horsewhipped than leave those little kids." End quote. An ashen-faced volunteer, Robert Buckner, stated, "I would have gladly given my life for one of those kids' lives, just one child." In describing the sudden panic that struck those at the bomb site, paramedic Mark Robertson said, "All of a sudden I looked up and I saw this large group of firemen running just as fast as they could. A lot of them were older firemen with whom I'd made many calls during the 6 years I'd been out in the field, and I saw fear on their faces. Some of those guys were running faster than I'd ever seen them move in my life. I thought, if these folks are scared about something, then it's time to run." As word of the ordered evacuation spread, civilians in the area panicked and began to run away from the federal building fast as they could in every direction. Everyone was moved back from the bomb site, while law enforcement officers made more secure the makeshift perimeter that had been hastily erected around the devastation. More yellow crime scene tape went up. Wooden barricades were brought in, and more guards were posted. Demolition experts arrived to handle this newest emergency. People all over the world, watching on television and listening on radio, were riveted to the spot as the Oklahoma Highway Patrol bomb squad entered the building. All listened with bated breath for any information from the officers. Moments after arriving, a bomb squad officer reported, "All companies on the general alarm be advised. There has been another device found in the federal building. Clear a 4-block area." On the police band, a horrifying conversation between two workers in the federal building was overheard by scanner buffs who were following the downtown developments. This conversation was reported by 3 separate and unrelated witnesses. "Boy, you're not going to believe this." "Believe what?" "I can't believe it. This is a military bomb." What was going on here? No word had yet been released to the public concerning the makeup of the bomb or bombs that had devastated the building. But suddenly, we were confronted by the voices of experts on the scene describing as a military bomb the device that was being handled at that moment by the bomb squad. This was a very serious development. It turned out to be something that would later be denied by all federal law enforcement representatives and by the primary local players when the media was finally allowed to ask the hard questions. In fact, once the denials began, the subject of other explosives in the building became the issue that would simply be ignored by all officials for several months to come. Nevertheless, witnesses at the scene had plenty to say about it at the time. Mail carrier David Sykes, who had earlier escaped from the basement area of the federal building, reported that a firefighter ran toward the crowd gathered nearby and told him and his co-workers, "You folks might want to move on west. They found another bomb." Kathy Garrett, the Red Cross Public Information Coordinator, told reporters, "Everyone just started running. They were shouting, 'Get out of the way, there's a bomb!' I ran." Andy Cullison, a cameraman who had been at the Good Printing Company 7 blocks north of the Mirror Building at the time of the explosions, had moved closer to the scene to observe the rescue operation. As he was watching, a firefighter approached and warned him and others to evacuate the area. Cullison said the firefighter told him, "They believe there's a second device, and it's more powerful than the first." 2 firefighters and 1 other gentleman, each speaking independently of the others and on condition of anonymity, testified to what was found in the building. They all stated that the second bomb was actually several bombs, 5-gallon-sized olive drab-colored canisters bearing mil-spec numbers and clearly labeled fulminate of mercury, with a hole in the top of each canister through which a detonator was attached. This could account for the comments about a military bomb, because fulminate of mercury is a powerful explosive used primarily by the military. It is practically impossible to purchase this substance in any quantity at all. It is intensely controlled by federal regulations, and a person desiring to acquire fulminate of mercury must first obtain approval and a federal permit and then jump through many hoops of bureaucratic red tape. Fulminate of mercury is an extremely dangerous substance, is extremely difficult to obtain, and is not available to just anybody. In an interview conducted in May 1995 by Relevance magazine, Oklahoma City Police Department Public Information Officer Bill Martin confirmed sketchy reports that several containers of fulminate of mercury were discovered inside the building. He guessed that they might have been used routinely by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in their explosives work. By late summer 1995, Martin had changed his story, knew nothing about the fulminate of mercury, couldn't imagine how the rumor got started, and suddenly could not recall the name of the magazine that had interviewed him the previous May. The fact that this chemical was found in clearly labeled military canisters obviates the possibility that some local thug manufactured the chemical in his kitchen, if such a thing were even possible, or bought it on the street. The fact that there were multiple canisters of military origin found in the building casts an entirely different light on everything that happened thereafter. Several witnesses at the scene watched as the rescue operation was stopped, and they stated that they saw at least 3 additional bombs taken out in barrels from the 3rd floor by bomb squad personnel. Others reported that explosives devices from the building were removed under blankets on medical stretchers. It was later reported that these devices were taken to a county property and then detonated. Additionally, the Dallas Morning News later wrote, quote, "Early reports speculated that the terrorists may be traceable through the unexploded device agents recovered from the building," end quote. When questioned about who might have been responsible for the bombing, Dr. Randall Heather, a terrorism expert, said, quote, "We should find out an awful lot when the bombs are taken apart. I think it was a great stroke of luck, and it's hard to talk about luck on a day like today in Oklahoma City. But it was a great stroke of luck that we actually have got defused bombs. It's through the bomb material that we'll be able to track down who committed this atrocity," end quote. As far as the bomb squad, the police, the experts, and the eyewitnesses were concerned, there were secondary devices discovered and removed, possibly of military origin. As far as the media was concerned, these discoveries were going to supply the big break needed to track down the perpetrators. Amazingly enough, the devices were not used to track down anyone. Instead, their existence was denied, concealed, and lied about by federal officials, and eyewitnesses were threatened and told to keep quiet. No questions were asked. Later, in what would possibly be the most inane statement made by any federal official on April 19th, Jack Killeran, then spokesman in Washington, D.C. for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, said, quote, "Public safety personnel on the scene think they have found an unexploded device in the building. We believe this was a bombing, and we are responding as if it was, but we do not have any forensic evidence yet to confirm that. The damage, however, appears consistent with the bombing," end quote. Killeran's non-explanation was made in the afternoon when all the world except him knew for certain that a bombing had indeed occurred. It is interesting to note, however, that his unfortunate remarks were made prior to the unexplained transformation of the facts into what later became the official story. Killeran would never again refer publicly to secondary or unexploded devices, nor would he again appear in his role as BATF spokesman during the bombing investigation. In spite of the testimony of numerous witnesses and reports from personnel on the scene, national news representatives would for months to come continue to say, quote, "The suspicious devices turned out not to be bombs," end quote. This statement and all others like it were bold-faced lies. No one in the mainstream press with the possibility of public exposure and the power to inform was asking any questions about these obvious contradictions. For reasons unknown, all immediately adopted the revised version of the event in whatever twisted configuration it had at the time, and have continued to do so through the story's many subsequent alterations. But the fact remains that television viewers heard the screams warning everyone to run from the scene. We heard the voices crying, "A bomb! Another bomb!" We saw the press scrambling to safety. We saw medical personnel grasping the walking wounded under the arms and dragging them away from the area. We listened to the reports from eyewitnesses who saw the secondary devices. Something was definitely going on, and everyone who saw the bomb squad truck arriving at the scene and later observed the bomb squad removing devices from the building had no doubt that something had been discovered. Nurse volunteer Tony Garrett spoke about the discovery of the secondary explosive devices. Quote, There was a period when we were bringing the bodies to the playground, and that's when we were told that we needed to evacuate the building because they had found another bomb. There were at least 4 other people who told me that there was a bomb inside the building, and they were all part of the rescue effort. 2 of them actually saw the removal of the bombs when the bomb squad came down to the Muir building and described to me a timing device on one of the bombs. It had been set to go off 10 minutes after the earlier explosions. We assumed that the mechanism of the bomb with the timer malfunctioned because of the first blasts. So that's why the second bomb did not explode. End quote. For what seemed like the longest hour in human history, we all waited in uncertainty, weeping for the victims and praying for the injured and the rescuers, while the bomb squad brought its equipment and personnel into the area to defuse and remove the secondary explosive devices. For those waiting outside the building, everything was at a complete standstill. As we waited with great anxiety, C.A. Davis, who had been involved downtown with the rescue efforts, telephoned KFOR Channel 4 television to offer a report for the public. When asked if he could describe the scene inside the building, Mr. Davis said, "You just can't imagine it. There are bodies laying everywhere. There are people just laying there screaming, trying to get out. I've helped rescue several bodies. There were a bunch of babies that we've had to drag out. It's just a real gruesome sight." What they're trying to do right now is to search in there for another bomb. We're just trying to pull everybody who is a civilian back to a 4-block radius. It's just a terrible sight. I'm a construction company owner, and I was coming down here to a trim company when the explosion happened. It rocked me pretty hard, and I didn't know what was going on. I went down there and asked me if I could take somebody to the hospital. I took 4 or 5 victims in my truck over to the Baptist hospital, left there, and came back. I knew the maintenance man of the federal building. He was trying to help get blueprints to go down there and shut off the auxiliary power. We went down there and the generators didn't kick off. The folks were afraid to get in the building because of all the live electrical. I was just trying to be a concerned person and help. I got deeper into it, and then things started falling on us. What we're trying to do now is get some heavy cranes in here and try to get the bigger I-beams and concrete off these people and try to secure the area. End quote. As we waited, word came that a 2.5-year-old fair-skinned female child with red hair and blue eyes was being taken to Southwest Medical Center. Her condition was stable, but she needed surgery. She could not tell anyone her name, and no one could find her parents. Video footage of the child's wide-eyed, frightened face and tiny, clinging hands was broadcast as she was gently cradled and carried to an ambulance by a female volunteer. It was hoped that someone would recognize the child and contact the hospital or the parents. As the bomb squad continued to work in the Muir building, Dr. Thomas Coniglione, the medical director of St. Anthony Hospital, made an impromptu speech in front of the emergency entrance. He was very concerned about the delay in the rescue operation caused by the discovery of the secondary devices, and he offered his report to a public hungry for any information about the status of the injured who had been brought to his hospital. He looked tired and stressed. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been reading to you from several places in Oklahoma City Day 1, most recently from Chapter 3. If you'd like to have a copy, send $34.95 post-paid. Make your check or money order payable to Harvest, Harvest, and send it to Harvest, P.O. Box 1970, Eager, Arizona 85925. Make your checks or money orders payable to Harvest, Harvest, in the amount of $34.95, and send them to Harvest, P.O. Box 1970, Eager, Arizona 85925. And if you're in the Eager, Springerville, St. John's, Alpine, Sholo area, you can pick up a copy of Oklahoma City Day One at Stewart Books on Main Street in Springerville. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless each and every single one of you. This is the Voice of Freedom, Eager, Arizona. Listening to the Worldwide Freedom Radio Network with studios in Eager, Arizona, broadcasting on satellite GE1, transponder 7, 7.56 audio, and over 700 FM stations across the nation and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to purchase a copy of Oklahoma City Day One by Michele Moore, send $34.95 postpaid. Make your check or money order payable to Harvest, Harvest, and send it to Harvest, P.O. Box 1970, Eager, spelled Eagar, Arizona 85925. That's $34.95 postpaid. Make check or money order payable to Harvest and send it to Harvest, P.O. Box 1970, Eager, Arizona 85925. If you live in the Eager, Springerville, St. John's, Alpine, or Show Low area, you can pick up a copy at Stewart Books in Springerville. If you do that, it's only $29.95.